Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. Today's speech is going to be the power of the word in relation to mantra meditation and its effects. So, there are 7 billion people in this world, and in one way or the other, I believe we're all looking for something in our own ways. And there are many different practices to do that. Myself, personally, I practice meditation, Tai Chi, Qigong, all these things. And I have found that in all the years that the power of words, reciting mantras, is actually the most powerful practice you can actually do. Because it can really, really change your life in ways you would have never imagined. It's a very, very direct way to attain results. So how does that function exactly? We can look at that from a scientific point of view. How can mantra reciting be so effective? So we have Tom Levine here tonight to talk about that. Thank you. Let's give it up to Tom.
Alright, thanks Stephen for that intro. Yeah, basically there it is, mantra meditation is what we're going to, the power of a word. So from the Bible, you know, like in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. We come back to that later and how that relates to Indian philosophy. So what a big background to myself, I'm Thomas, and I first got interested in Indian philosophy from about over 20 years ago when my Indian teacher called Swami, he visited England for the first time, and my aunt was actually his first devotee, and now he travels around the world, and you know he's going to come to Taiwan, so I hope you can all come and meet him. But he first introduced me to mantras, and he gave me a mantra, I think about initiating into a mantra like 15 years ago, I don't know, 10 or 12 years ago. And I can just remember that night, I was on the roof in India, and it was these big clouds over, and then I just got a call from Swami to come down, so I ran down, and suddenly it started raining, these big thunderbolts, and then I'm in this little temple, and he's putting the fingers, like it's pretty full on. And but to be honest with you, I haven't really been a serious practitioner, although I have done some retreats. But I do. I've got a little thing. Here we are. This is a mantra thing where you repeat it. So what I wanted to do is, I'm a Western person, and Western people often have a mental attitude where, okay, we kind of have faith, we kind of believe, but we want scientific proof. Okay, we want to know the facts and the figures, and that's the same for me, and that's what brought me to do studying applied linguistics and to study the mantra and do my some own research and studies. Okay, so looking on to modern linguistics. Modern linguistics, how we see language is we see them in terms of phonetic, the sound of words, perhaps semantic in terms of what a word means, your perception of a word, and pragmatic, the whole sentences together. But it's not quite the same as Indian philosophy. The nearest linguistics comes to Indian philosophy is a guy called Austin, who talks about declarative acts. Indian philosophy says that words can actually change physical reality. Now this is the closest Western linguistics gets is declarative acts. For example, I now pronounce you man and wife. So now something's changed there. You were engaged and now you're actually married. That's what's called a declarative act. But Indian philosophy, as we'll find out, goes a lot further than that. Okay, so can you make a mantra from English, French or Chinese? Well, according to, I studied Sufism as well, and the Sufi master said that there's only really 3 languages you can use to study mantras, and that is Arabic, Sanskrit and Hebrew. And the reason why that is that the syllabic, phonetic sound, vibrational sound of these languages is directly related to the psyche and the feeling of the actual quality of the word. And I'll give you an example. For example, in English we have the word truth. And if we think of that word truth, it has some kind of, we've got some relationship to that. But in Arabic, the word for truth is ya haq, ya haq. And that, if you repeat that enough, you'll feel it kind of hits you here. And this is, just as truth goes directly to the core, so does that vibrational quality. And I'll invite you to do that if you don't believe me. Okay, so moving on. Indian philosophy versus quantum physics. So it's interesting from my studies that actually these 2 separate studies are actually have got some common ground there. So in the past, for example, classic physics used to think that matter was consisted of atoms which are separate building blocks, and they proposed in classical physics is that you can, if you've got an electron motor, you can perhaps even see these, and classical physics would say, okay, this table has got atoms in a certain structure, and if you see it, they'll be just fixed in place. As we move forward in our understanding to quantum physics, this isn't actually the case. I'm no expert on physics, so you can call me out here. But from quantum physics, they say that basically quantum physics is saying that everything is dynamic. Quantum theory showed that subatomic particles have no meaning as isolated entities, but can be understood as interconnections between various agencies, observations and measurements. In other words, particles are not things, but interconnections between things, and interconnections between other things, and so on. This is according to Wolf. Thus, quantum theory reveals a basic oneness of the universe. It shows that if we penetrate into matter, nature does not allow us to use isolated blocks. Rather, it appears to be a complicated web of relations between various parts of a unified whole. I think there's a theory now. I did this a few years ago, but there's definitely quantum physics has moved on a little bit since then. But coming back to the table, what you'll find if you look, according to quantum physics, if you look into this solid piece of metal, piece of table, for example, you realise that these atoms are vibrating, and the atomic particles are actually moving. Likewise, for Indian philosophy, they saw the cosmos as a dynamic, ever-changing reality. I'll give you a quote here. The cosmos is seen as inseparable reality, which is in constant flux, constant movement, ever-changing and forever in motion. It's funny, but this phrase you can actually use for quantum physics as well. So, Okay. So let's go to a little bit more about the philosophy of the mantra and how does it work according to the Indian philosophy. Well, Indian philosophy sees a mantra as a kind of vibration. Actually, it sees speech as sees speech, thought, and form as vibrations of the same entity. And I'm going to quote here: "The unmanifest cosmos, a mass of latent, undifferentiated energy, contains the seed of the power of the universe. It can be awakened by a primeval shudder. The causal vibration of shudder is undifferentiated, soundless sound." So what they're saying is, do you have a sound or a vibration is the cause of this undifferentiated. This is the creative energy of the universe, and it can be represented as the mantra Om. Furthermore, the cosmic vibration splits Shakti, which is the creative force, into two fields. They call it Nada and Bindu. Bindu is these Shakti into two fields of magnetic force. Bindu is the male centrifugal force, and Nada is the female centripetal force. And the bifurcation of Shakti energy into these forces act as a kind of magnetic force holding the molecules of the universe together. So underlining this physical world they say are these wavelengths of 50 primeval sounds or vibrations. And they link these sounds to their language, Sanskrit. So these sounds are present in their language, and that can be a reason why if you do repeat a mantra, you're tapping into this kind of energy, it says. And I'll put a quote here. "Through attunement by repetition, by again and again of the mantra, a wavelength is produced that acts as a bridge from the gross plane of articulate sound back through the obscuring veil of the material universe, and ultimately to the primeval source of undifferentiated energy, or the supreme power itself." So that's quite a mouthful there, but basically what it's saying is that you have different stages of existence. You have a physical stage, and you have right to the bridge to the other stage, which is actually undifferentiated energy, but it's potential. It's the potential energy, and that's what the creative force, they say, is behind the universe. And so when you're repeating your mantra, you're tapping into, you're going through these different stages, and they've got 4 stages. You've got the spoken word, which is the dense stage. So, for example, if I say dog, immediately you're probably thinking about a dog, and you have an idea of what that is, a dog. And this is close to semantics in applied linguistics. The second stage is talking about impressions and emotions, which are not quite as tangible as something physical. But you have different ideas. You can transmit thoughts and words into language, but there's always a little bit of confusion or ambiguity as to exactly how that represents your thoughts and emotions. So, for example, language is basically incomplete. The third stage is non-verbal, telepathic state, in where there's no differentiation of name, thought and form. An example that they give is you can have 5 different people from 5 different languages and they don't understand each other. But you can show them something very beautiful and they'll still have the same, maybe a similar reaction. Maybe you can show them a beautiful flower and all of these 5 people can look into that and still connect to that flower and have the same feeling of beauty or whatever it may be. And the last stage they call para, which is called the highest state, is the aim of what the mantra is trying to do. It's trying to go through this bridge from these three different states to the highest state, which is transcendental, formed in no particular wavelength. It's above all names and thoughts. It's allegedly above all language, and can be seen once one is more pure. It can be seen as pure, undifferentiated potential sound, i.e. the force that creates and binds all. So they really see, the Indians really see sound as potential energy. And that's how they say that repetition of the mantra works. So they see sound as having innate power. Furthermore, they see sound as, in terms of repeating a mantra, they say the most powerful is the silent repetition, as this is less dense than the verbal repetition of the mantra. Okay. Just one more point before we go into some scientific studies. Western linguistics usually wants a meaning. It wants to have a word and is looking for some kind of meaning. For mantras, you don't actually need that. So you can have, like, some of the most powerful mantras are Kundalini Kriya Yoga, where you're repeating words that have no meaning, like Klim, Dum, Hum, Shrim. And these again, are used to produce some kind of vibration in the field. And take it from me, if you watch it out long enough, it will have an effect. But you don't need to know what the meaning is. Not important. It's the vibration, it's the vibrational quality that's important. Okay, so let's move on to some scientific studies in the past, written in journals, as to what the effects may be. So, well, there's been a lot of EEG studies and fMRI scans recently. My research is a little bit out of date, I have to say, but Wallace in 1970, after mantra repetition, there's reductions in heart rate and in oxygen consumption. They tested galvanic skin responses, and they also, more interestingly, looked at readings into brain waves of subjects. Now, there's three types of brain waves which we usually operate on, two really. We've got beta, alpha and theta, well there's delta as well. We've got beta, alpha and theta waves. Beta waves is probably the wave I'm in at the moment, and is this active, maybe slightly anxious and busy doing things waves, so day to day. The alpha waves are when you're rested and you're in a state of relaxation. They can be also associated with REM sleep as well, as can theta waves, which are even slower. So if you look at one of these waves on a computer, the beta would be up and like this, and the alpha would be a little bit less, and the theta would be running. They're actually electrical impulses. So the theta would be 6 to 8 Hz, and the beta goes up to about 15, 12 plus. Okay, so the EEG studies on mantra meditation reduce that electrical brainwave speed, so it will change it from this to this. It decreases in anxiety, decreases in they're more effective in reducing anxiety than contemplation, and much greater than relaxation techniques, including muscle relaxation. Similar findings have been found for cardiovascular disease, depression, and breathing is reputed to be slower when practicing mantra meditation. All of these have been, there's tests done by transcendental medication. There's tests done by many different people, in fact. Another test here is about alcohol abuse. They studied 198 different alcoholics, and mantra meditation had a significant effect on reducing their dependence on the drug, on the alcohol. And there's many studies there, Wallace, Shafi, to name a couple. Okay. Also, there is some negative results. There's one or two negative results, and there's allegations of a lot of these tests have been done by people, albeit academics, who do transcendental meditation. So there's an innate bias there as to the results, and they've also been criticised in some for a lack of double-blind controls and a refusal to submit raw data. This hasn't been in all of them, just but it has happened. Also, in terms of placebo, in introducing placebo, one academic has criticised some of these studies there, which is important. Okay, so I'll just talk to you very briefly about I'll talk to you about there are other things I can talk to you about. A lot of stuff here. But yeah, I'm not going to go through all of that. But basically, the evidence says that there is a positive effects can be had. So I decided to test this, and I did a small study myself for my master's program, and I got 20 people, and I got them to do a little questionnaire, and from those questionnaires I did some hypotheses, and hypothesis 1, according to Indian philosophy, the words book and car are not mantras, so they would have no beneficial effects on the user if repeated. Hypothesis 2. It is expected that effects of sitting quietly will be less significant than those who are asked to repeat the mantra Om for 5 minutes. Subhypothesis 3. The respondent will feel more positive effects after reciting Om relative to the controls, and the effects he experiences will be at least equal to that of non-meditators who recited Om. So the study was quite simple. I'm testing non-meditators, and I'm getting them to repeat the word Om for 5 minutes. There's a questionnaire before, there's a questionnaire after, and that's it. So let's look at calmness. Sub-hypothesis 4, respondents who repeated the mantra Om would feel more calm and less anxious than they did prior to repeating relative to the controls. From my small test, it supports the hypothesis because 79% of participants felt either calmer or a lot more calm than they did prior to the test. Moreover, 50% of the total non-control group tested reporting a lot more calm than before. Conversely, the control, who was asked to sit comfortably in a quiet place without any distractions and with their back straight, felt no significant changes in either anxiety or calmness levels. Controls A and C were also asked to repeat a non-mantra word in the same conditions as the main group. These respondents actually felt less calm than they did before they started the test. So that was the word book. So, anxiety, kind of similar results. I don't want to bore you there with anxiety. 64%, or nearly 2/3 of the non-controls felt less anxious or a lot less anxious than before. Just give me a second. Okay, however, an issue with the data has not been discounted for in the results is the placebo effect. In other words, there's an argument that the participants feel calmer and less anxious after the test because they imagine the mantra meditation must have positive effects, otherwise people wouldn't do it. So, yeah, alright, they're non-meditators, so there's definitely a case that the placebo effect is in there. Placebo effect, for those who don't know, is just the effect. You know, maybe someone's given something, they say it's medicine, but it's not medicine. They say, oh, I took that medicine, I feel really better, much better now. But they didn't take any medicine, it's just they thought they'd taken medicine. Okay, sub-hypothesis 5, breathing will be slower after a repetition of the mantra than before relative to controls. The evidence supports this hypothesis as 78% of respondents claim their breathing was slower than before relative to the control. These are all very subjective. I mean, these weren't tested, these just questionnaires. You know, take it what you will. Sub-hypothesis 6, according to research, thought process will be slowed down after the mantra repetition relative to controls. These lean towards suggesting hypothesis is correct because 2/3 of the sample, 64% reported their thought process was slower. 5 minutes? Okay. So, some words after, I asked respondents to write stuff down, and these are some of what they wrote down. A little more relaxed, feel more calm, a lot more relaxed. I feel like I might do that again before I sleep tonight. It was quite soothing. It was great to take 5 minutes to relax. Like I've had a nice relaxing sleep. Vibrations of sound have a soothing effect. Time seemed to go quickly. It felt as if time flew by whilst doing this. This time flew by. Okay, I feel centered. So some quite positive effects. So let's conclude then. To conclude, this is very small data. From the data, it doesn't prove that their mantras do have effect, but it kind of does lean towards it. I think from my personal experience that if I repeat it a lot, 2,000 times, it does have a soothing, calming effect. What we could do, if you want, we could even take 5 minutes now to, depending on what you'd like to do, you could look on the back here and you say, test mantras effects for yourself. Here's a quick test. Between 1 and 5, 5 is the most calm. How do you feel in terms of calmness? It's 1 and 5, 5 being the most positive. How positive do you feel now? And then we could repeat on for 5 minutes and then do that. So you can do that in your own time, or we could even do it now. It's up to you. But I think experience is the key. From my personal opinion, I do think it does have a positive effect. I just don't know why I don't do it more seriously. I should do it more seriously now. I've done the research. But I do have a mantra. I've got an aim to do like 1 million counted ones by the time in the next 4 years. And from the philosophy, apparently if you do that enough, it will kind of get into your subconscious. And it's almost as if it's something moving without you needing to even think about it. Some real positive things that you can be repeating it in sleep and still have really positive effects without actively needing to do it. So again, I'm open to questions and criticism. I don't know everything, so please don't, but I'm welcome to questions and answers. I can give it my best shot. Okay, thanks very much.